All right, so you said that you followed up with the mothers after they delivered the
For
baby
9 days.
for 9 days. What would you be doing during those 9 days?
Those 9 days, you ask them questions as how they keep the hygiene system. You teach them
Okay.
how to take care of themselves so that they don't get sepsis.
Hmm.
You know,
What would be a reason that they might get sepsis?
if they don't clean themselves properly,
Mm-hmm.
if they don't really use an disinfectant, or something to keep them clean.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to really stress that there would be no problems.
Okay.
And you also instruct them about the bleeding, and if you see any excess bleeding or anything, call the nurse.
Okay. So in your time practicing as a midwife, what was available to women to use for the postpartum bleeding? Like what were they actually using? They were not using tampons or disposable maxi pads or whatever. So what was the actual material that they used in order to
Well,
collect the blood?
most of the people, before they had the baby,
Mm-hmm.
I teach them to prepare what we call diapers,
Okay.
so that in case of any problem, they could have the clean diapers to use instead of taking any old rag or any old thing. They had to prepare that amount of stuff should in case they have a problem.
Okay. And so people, let's say someone was bleeding for 6 weeks, right? That sometimes happens, right? After birth.
Very rare. Very rare you find somebody bleeding to that amount.
How long would you say they would bleed for?
3 days. If somebody bleed for 3 days, they know they have to call the nurse. And if it's something that you cannot manage in the house, you send them to the hospital.
Okay, but so that's more of if the person is having a heavy bleeding. But
Yes.
what most women today are, I guess, educated is that once you have a baby, it's going to be like you're going to have a menstrual cycle,
Yeah.
right? So how long would your clients, on average, have their menstrual cycle begin, like after they have the baby?
Most
The
of them,
postpartum bleeding.
like 3 months.
Okay.
After they have the baby, they in the next 3 months, you find they would start having their regular periods again.
But how long would they bleed after the baby was delivered?
Around 6, 7 days, because sometimes when you go on the 9th morning, the bleeding is finished. They stop.
Miss Cox, I have to tell you, I think that is so different than most women today. I think most women today are bleeding for a much longer time than 9 days after.
After the baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
What do you think could be causing that?
I don't know.
Were there any type of herbs or foods that women were instructed to take postpartum, let's say like maybe to boost their iron or, for whatever reason, to clean out their blood? What were the things that you knew about in those times that women were instructed to do?
Well, the bleeding business is like you eat a lot of food with the iron, and they had the diet. When you have a baby, you have to have olive oil and what and what and what. And, the
What do you
diet.
do with the olive oil?
Well, in those days, olive oil was like a treasure.
Mm.
So you make them know they have to have certain types of food so that they could have the strength and, everything to manage the baby and so on.
Can you remember some of those foods? That's what a lot of people want to know is what were the foods that women were told to eat postpartum as well as prenatally?
Most of the time you tell them, oh, well, you have to have the banana with the iron, the yams, and the callaloo, and things like that. A lot of greens, tomato, okras, greens and vegetable, and fish. A lot of fish.
Okay. What about prenatally? Was there also a diet that was recommended to women? while they were pregnant?
Most of them just use a regular home food. But at that time, I used to have like an antenatal clinic.
Okay.
So when you see Jane, you tell Jane about coming to the surgery. Miss Cox is going to have a class. You must come. And one invite the other, one invite the other. And so you have a full program like.
I just want to hug you. I'm like, oh my goodness, you did childbirth education.
Yes.
You did childbirth education at a time.
Like
right now, women are not even getting childbirth education that's that comprehensive.
Oh, no.
I can't believe it.
I used to have a class, and it was very comical. If I'm going down the road, going down Lafayette Road, and I see Jane, I have no idea of who Jane is.
Right.
Hi, Jane, how are you? Oh, you're going down the... I said, yes, I'm going to take care of Emilia. I don't even know who Emilia is. You know, Jane, I saw two ladies sitting on Mr. Samuel's step the other day, and I find they look pregnant. But I don't know their names. But I'm busy right now. Would you tell them the nurse in Parkland say to come? She's a nice little lady, you know, you must bring them. And that is how I got the people to come. I didn't have to be going
to get their neighbors to encourage them to come to you.
Yes.
Word of mouth. You were a businesswoman even then.
And then too, I used to have them bring the babies to the center and give them ointments for the children's skin and, you know, teach them how to take care of the babies and things like that. So we had a lot of teaching. I had a lot of teaching.
So were those ointments like a prescription, or was that something that you would make?
Vaseline and, you know, little cream and things to keep the children, you know,
skin
clean.
Moist.
Another thing, in those days we didn't have that amount of transportation.
People were walking mostly.
People had to walk. So I kind of gauge the time that you're going to have the baby, and I make you to understand you're going to get that taxi to come to pick me up. So I used to arrange transportation according to where the people live. So they had to have themselves prepared. And you teach them to know, if you feel this cramp or that cramp, call the nurse. If you see a drop of blood, call the nurse. So we used to have a lot of fun, coming and going from the surgery. And one time...
So the place was called surgery.
The surgery.
You were not performing surgery, but it was called the surgery.
The surgery. You come to the surgery.
Speaking of surgery, just not to cut you, but were there any surgeries? Like, were there any medically, some surgically delivered births at that time in Grenada?
Yeah. If you had, like, if you see a problem and you send them, say, like, to get a cesarean section, which is very rare. Because everything was normal, you know. And doing that, at one time I started gathering the babies and getting presents for the children who had the best baby, or, you know, who was taking care of the baby the best way. They would have a gift. I made a nutmeg tree Christmas tree one time and collected 46 gifts.
Wow.
For the children, with the help of a good friend who is still in Grenada, Sheila George. We went around to the stores and begged for gifts, bath towels, soap, toothbrush, this, that, you know, things that... And I could remember the best baby was a Miss Marsmo. That was her name. Miss Marsmo had the best baby, and she got the first prize.
And what made her baby the best baby?
Because the child was so clean and nice, you know, the skin clean, and the child was well kept.
Cared for.
Well cared for. So she got the first prize.
And at that time, people were using cloth diapers?
Most of them. Most of them.
Did you also train them on how to care for the cloth diapers, like how to launder them?
How to wash them and so on. And you know, I still have that habit. I will show you. I've made cloth diapers for some children in Africa
Mm.
because the children couldn't go to school when
They had their
their
menstrual
periods.
cycle. Mm-hmm.
So I went down on Pitkin Avenue and got a diaper material
Mm-hmm.
and got the padding, and I made sanitary pads
Do you know that's a big thing now?
and sent to Africa
Hmm.
with one of my guild members. So with the guild member, she have in the guild book,
This is the Quilting Guild
yes,
that you belong
Quilting
to.
Guild, Problem Solved by Emelda Cox. And at this present time, I still like the cloth diapers.
The cloth diapers for babies or
For
the cloth menstrual
You make the pads out of the diaper material with wadding inside so they could wash it.
So you're saying you prefer that for women to use that than
Yeah.
than the disposable?
And it
It's
is good.
interesting you're saying that. It's a big movement now. Most of the natural, healthy people, there's a conversation about using the reusable pads because we're not sure what's really in the disposable pads.
That's right.
Even how I was saying to you, like a lot of women are bleeding a lot postpartum. There's a conversation around like, well, what's really in these pads? Is that what's making people
To
bleed
bleed.
more?
Yeah.
So, and then
it's-
you hear people who have changed over to the cotton
Cotton,
ones. They'll say, "Oh, I bleed less now."
yeah. The regular cotton ones, I have it somewhere. I'll show you one of the pads,
Okay.
which is better than what you're getting in the store.
Now, how do you tell people they should launder it if someone wants to use reusable pads? How should they launder it?
Where you prepare a special container.
Like an enamel bucket or a
normal-
plastic
yes,
bucket?
a regular something.
Mm-hmm.
And you put them to soak in a disinfectant, and then you wash them.
Like what? What would be a disinfectant you would say?
Where everybody use different things, you
Mhm.
know, like Dettol, you know, whatever they will feel comfortable with.
Mhm.
Because I am sensitive to everything.
Mm-hmm. So what would you use being sensitive?
Me, I just use palm olive soup.
The green
The
palm
green
olive,
palm
the
olive
dish,
soup.
the dish soap, like.
Yes, the
Mhm.
regular bars of palm olive soup.
Oh, the bar
That's-
soap.
That's
Mhm.
what I use.
And then they just soap it up
You
and
soak
just
it out,
soak
just
it.
soak it. Make sure that you get all the stuff out and you wash it with your hands, or you could wash it in the washing machine or
Mhm.
anything. But you could use the pads.
Right, over
and
again.
over, yeah.
And so the same thing applies for the baby diapers, right?
The
Like.
baby diapers. No, they do the Pampers.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have the baby diapers, you could use them just the same. Wash them clean and use them again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because a lot of waste.
It's true, and it's ruining the environment.
Yeah,
I mean, they're very useful when you're on the go.
yeah. But a lot
Because
of
sometimes
waste.
you know you have this soiled diaper and you're like, okay, I'm out in the street, but I use cloth diapers. What do you think made your practice special, your midwifery practice? Like, what was your gift?
I mean, what? Oh, it was a matter of helping people
Mm-hmm.
to do the right thing, because childbirth supposed to be normal. It's a normal procedure.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have your baby at home, you have your other children in the house, you are there for the children.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is take care of yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of taking care of yourself, so did you use any postpartum like herbal baths or anything, any herbs to do like a womb steam that people maybe had to stoop over or anything like that?
Some of the people, not all, some of the people, they had the old time pail,
The enamel pail, the
enamel
hard metal. Mhm.
high pail, and they would put hot water, and they would put whatever bush in those days. They put the bush in it and they sit over it
Mhm.
for a few days, but not all the people do that.
Okay.
But a lot of them used to do it.
Did you know what the bush was? What was the different herbs?
Where we had Coralie bush,
So people were sitting over Coralie.
Coralie bush,
Mhm.
Borden bush, the Borden from the tree, the leaves, Borden leaves, Coralie, and black sage bush.
Wow.
You know, and different people had different feelings. You know, they have whatever bush they have, they're going to sit over it.
Whatever bush was near them
Yeah,
growing.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And they sit, and the steam come up. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and that's how they used to fix themselves.
And that was helpful to bring the uterus back to its
To
pre-pregnancy size.
Right.
I also did it, even right here in America. Asked my mother. I had her with me searching on Nostrand Avenue for that bucket. I have one right
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I used an enamel pail,
Mhm. And you sit over
and
it.
I sat over it after the herbs were boiled. Actually, Mommy went to Trinidad that year, the
And
month
by
before I
when?
had the baby.
And buy one.
And no, she didn't get it in
Oh,
Trinidad.
okay.
She got the herbs there.
Oh.
Because I said to her, "How can you go away when I'm having a baby? I'm due." She says, "Listen, girl, this is your first baby. You're gonna be pregnant when I come back. I'm gonna go and I'll come back. You're gonna still be pregnant. You know your friend." So I said, "Okay, well, if you're gonna go there, you have to get all my herbs."
Yeah.
So she came
Black
back with
sage, black sage.
she
That's
came back
what-
with olive leaf.
Mhm.
This is Trinidad, okay?
Trinidad,
Olive leaf. That was to cleanse the blood. That was to drink a tea. Hog plum, which was to bring in the milk, I think, or was it
Yeah.
vervine? Both of those I had, and then I think what I stooped over was sweet broom and other things.
And
Does Grenada call it sweet broom?
I
You have a herb called sweet broom in Grenada? I wonder what it's
I can't
called.
remember what it is. Another thing too that cleans the blood is mobby.
Of course.
Mobby. The people used to drink a lot of mobby after they have their babies.
Mm.
They say they're cleaning the blood
Mhm.
with the mobby. I use mobby now. I have mobby and cinnamon.
Mhm.
I boil it, so put it and have it in the fridge.
And the
upstairs.
sorrel would have been like a blood builder. Like that would have been
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
enrich the blood. But yeah, the Morbi definitely for cleaning the blood.
Yes, mobby and cinnamon.
Are you aware of, if any, of the prenatal, birth, or postpartum care techniques that you used, whether or not they have any African roots?
Not exactly.
Because even like the herbs, you know, when you look at sorrel is something that actually is in Africa. You know, it's like a lot of these traditions, we find that we carried those traditions with us. So it's like trying to find out which particular ones. Like, for example, belly binding. You know, there's a big tradition in Africa of binding
Oh yes, you
after.
have to wear the belly band.
Mm-hmm.
After you have the baby, you must have the belly band to put the uterus back in place.
Mhm.
That was a something, you know.
So everyone did that.
Yeah.
And who would make them?
Well, people used to make their own belly bands.
Wow.
They make their own belly bands with domestic material, and they double the material, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and make it like, because in those days they didn't have ready-made
Right.
belly bands, so they had to make your own belly band.
And what would they fasten it with?
Most of them, we had what we call hooks and eye.
Oh, the hook and eye
The
closure, like
hooks
a
and
corset.
eye. So you put it on, and you know exactly where it would fit.
Mm-hmm.
And they had the hooks and eye or the buttons.
Mm-hmm.
You know, button it on.
Okay. What were the protocols that you used to safeguard mothers from the onset or effects of postpartum depression? We hear a lot about postpartum depression now.
That's right. When the people having the babies and so on, you kind of play games with them, so you could know how they feel.
Mm.
You know, you ask them certain questions, you make jokes and things like that, and you tell them, listen, now you having a baby, you don't need no problem. So take care of yourself. And if that gentleman tell you stupidness, ignore him and don't get yourself sick.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the kind of things you had to, you know, kind of
Counsel.
help them
Mm-hmm.
to understand that they have to take care of themselves. Otherwise, they would really be sick.
So if there was someone who, you know, their hormonal levels did not balance out and, you know, postpartum depression was a result, what kind of help was available for them?
At that time, we didn't have, say, a specialist.
Mm-hmm.
But you would encourage them to go to the regular doctor and ask him questions and tell him how they feel.
Okay.
You know, tell the doctor exactly how you feel, so then you will be able to get some help.
Were there like a high rate or a low rate of postpartum depression?
Very rare.
Very rare.
Very rare. You know, they try to take care of the baby and, you know, just move on.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember who taught you how to do the belly binding? Or like how you learned to make it?
To make the belly band?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. After we... Who taught me to make the belly band? I can't remember, you know. Who taught me to make the belly band? Because the people used to make their own belly bands, you know. When you think, you say, you have your belly band? Yes, nurse. You know, they used to make their own stuff.
So there were certain things people knew they had to have. They knew they had to
prepare them.
They had to prepare the
Clean
the napkins so that they
Yes.
can have it for the bleeding. They had to have a belly band.
And clean bath towel, you know, some washcloths that you could use. You know, you kind of
Your
make them
own special
prepare,
stuff.
prepare themselves.
What about for the baby? What did people have to take care of the babies?
They had to have a clean, you know, a towel for you to, when you bathe the baby, it's a clean something, more than one. So you would always have something clean to take care of the baby.
Okay.
And you teach them to take care of the baby eyes, you know, check the eyes and so on, you know, and things like that.
Okay. Have you heard? This is one of my questions based on what's happening in current events. So, have you heard that in 2019, Black women in New York State are dying in hospitals during and after labor in epidemic proportions? Did you know that?
I've been hearing about those things
Mm-hmm.
because it's too much artificial. You know, normally you're having a baby.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be a normal procedure. But most times the doctors, they don't wait. They want to get that baby out. So they would go ahead and do a cesarean section.
So, Ms. Cox, you mentioned that your work as a midwife in Grenada spanned over the course of 10 years, from 1952 to 1962. And some people may or may not know that Grenada is a 3-island nation. So it's Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique.
Yeah.
Did you ever do any work in Carriacou or Petit Martinique?
I worked in Carriacou on several occasions. I worked in Petit Martinique for 8 months. I had, I think I had 8 babies in Petit Martinique. And Carriacou was in the hospital. You know, everybody came to the hospital to have the babies or to go out.
So you didn't have any home births in Carriacou?
In Carriacou, yes. The nurses had to go to the house. You know, you're up in the hospital and you go to the house, deliver them, you know, and so on.
So you don't remember how many you had in Carriacou?
Not exactly. And they had like 3-4 visiting stations where they have the nurse in the district, in Carriacou. So all the people in that area would be done by that nurse.
Okay, so she would visit like a certain area. That would be her zone.
That is her zone.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you worked only in the hospital. So anyone who was having a hospital birth in Carriacou at that time, when you were
deliver them in the hospital.
Okay. And then in Petit Martinique?
In Petit Martinique, you was on your own. You was your nurse. You was the doctor. You was the priest. You was everything. You had to take care, right? You had to take care of everybody in the island with a cut in the head or whatever. You had to suture it because there was no other way. In those places, you just had to be everything. You had to do everything. There was nobody to do nothing for you. And when I was in Carriacou, I took a sick child, in a sailing boat and brought that child to Grenada. The child had an operation and I brought the dead child back to Carriacou. That one I write the poetry for.
Oh, wow, that's heartbreaking.
To save a child.
What was wrong with the child?
the child had a twisted intestine.
How old was this child?
9 years old.
Oh, wow.
But it was around the New Year time. The regular boat was in Grenada. There was no way of going from Carriacou to Grenada except in a sailing boat. So I got the child's father to get a sailing boat January 1, 1953, to take me to Grenada with the sick child. We took the child to the operating room. The child died, and the Sunday morning I took the child on the regular boat and brought the dead child back to Carriacou. So that is one of my projects. I was quite satisfied, although I could have lost my life, but I felt I had to save that child. That was one of my Carriacou stuff. Maribou Hospital to take the child to St. George's. Doctor operated on the child this Saturday. He died. It was too late. He had a twisted intestine.
So no one was available when you got there to...
No, when we reached in Grenada, because we couldn't sail to St. George's, we had to sail to Grenville. I told the man, when he said, "Nurse, the tide is rough." I said, "You're accustomed going to Grenville, go to Grenville." And when we reached in Grenville, we got the ambulance from Maribou to bring the child to St. George's. Yeah. So that is one of the poetry that I want to publish.
Yeah.
To save a child.
To save a child.
Yeah.
Because after all, you know, you only can do what you can do.
What you can do.
And the power of life and death is not within us.
The doctor was in Grenada. The regular boat was in Grenada. So there was no doctor to find out what is wrong with the child. But since I had worked in the operating room, I realized what was going on with that child, and I begged the sister in charge to give me the child. So when she did not want to give me the child, I went to the child's father, and I said, "Get a boat." And I took that child in the boat and brought the child to Grenada.
What were the symptoms?
Abdominal. The child was not,
going to the bathroom.
Not going to the bathroom, and he had a distended abdomen. And since when I left Grenada, I was like second in charge of the operating room. So I told sister, I said, "Sister, give me the child." She wouldn't give me the child. So I went to the child father and I let him come up to the hospital and demanded his baby. And we sailed to Grenada.
How did you, he went with you to Grenada?
Yeah, it was the old man, the father, and there was one man that was stranded in Carriacou. He was so happy to get a ride to go down. And the two men that steering the wheel. And we landed in Grenada 10 o'clock that night. And the policemen saw the little light coming in, and they came on the pier in Grenville. And I put the child in the police station with the father. I called Maribou Hospital and asked Dr. Saltisick to send the ambulance. We got in the hospital around 2 o'clock that morning. The doctor came and examined the child and said he would operate on the child the morning, 9 o'clock. So we went into the operating room and doctor said, Sister, where did this child come from?" He said, "Nurse Vincent brought the child from Carriacou." He shook his head and he said, "It's a pity, it's too late." And the child died.
So why didn't he operate at 2 o'clock in the morning?
But they wasn't, prepared in that way. He came, he examined the child, and he was prepared for the operation that time.
Wow.
So I was satisfied. And when to come back now, Dr. Alexis said to me, Nurse Vincent, you don't do that to us." I didn't care. The boat was Redeem. The name of the little sailing boat was Redeem. But afterwards, the same Redeem fella got a big sailing boat, a big boat and everything.
So Vincent was your Maiden name at
Yes,
the time.
Vincent.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Vincent.
What a story.